Good evening. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Toya Singh. This show is a show in which we try to look at all of the day's top stories through the lens of just the facts. Our focus today is on Assam, where an expert committee formed by the Assam Chief Minister studied the possibility of a ban on polygamy in the state just submitted, as of a few hours ago, its report to the Chief Minister. Now, though the Chief Minister has argued that he doesn't want to stop anyone of a particular religion, that this is supposed to apply to those of all religions, opposition parties in his state continue to argue that the Chief Minister targets minority populations in the state with such moves. Such as, for example, an earlier drive just a few months ago against child marriage that led to the arrest of more than 3,000 people in just the first 15 days. Now, we're going to take a deeper dive into this story today on the show. We're also going to take a look at national numbers to understand in more depth the issue of polygamy, how it affects the state of Assam, and how this could affect all of the country. Let's take a deeper look. All right, now we're going to walk you through the numbers as they are across the entire country when it comes to the issue of polygamy. Where does the data and where do the numbers stand on this entire issue? So the data we're sharing with you was from a survey that was done between 2019 and 2020. When you look at that data, we're going to open it right here. We're going to show you this data. Polygamy, as it's practiced across the entire country, is actually practiced most in the Christian communities, 2.1%. These are all very, very low numbers, keep in mind. And I'd like to point out this is data, as we said, 2019 to 21 from the National Family Health Survey, the fifth such one. Muslims and the Muslim community across the country, the numbers when it comes to the practice of polygamy are actually less than they are for the Christian community. Now let's move on. Hindus at 1.3%. It is, even though it's been outlawed, still practiced by Hindus in some states, such as, for example, Tamil Nadu and parts of Chhattisgarh, and others 1.6%. That's a look at where the national data stands. Let's take a deeper look at the question we're looking at today across the entire country, but specifically looking at Assam, the issue of the legality of polygamy and the Assam government's move. Is this a valid reform or is this driven by a communal agenda? Let's take a look first at the guests that are here to join us to understand in more depth this topic. My colleagues are going to be joining us, but first we'll have panelists. Mahima Singh, a Congress spokesperson. We have Professor Geeta Bhatt, she's an academician and a political analyst. We have Saira Shah Halim, she's a social activist, and Ashwini Dube, an advocate of the Supreme Court. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here on the show. I'd like to come over first to the Congress representative, Mahima Singh. Ma'am, thank you for joining us. Mahima, let me just give our audiences some context. The Congress forms the key opposition in the state of Assam, with the announcement coming in earlier today that this report had finally been submitted. Ma'am, what was the Congress's reaction?
Jai Hind. See, the BJP is right now leaving no stone unturned in terms of communalism, when it comes to the Uniform Civil Code, when it comes to issues like polygamy. We saw what happened in the month of February in Assam when they tried to uproot the child marriages malpractice from the state. All is fine. You see, the intention, if it is to mend the wrongs in the society, it is all okay. But I think a government has to strategize and work with policies. It has to make policies and then take necessary steps in accordance with the policy that has been made with consensus of the stakeholders all across the state, whatever, groups or whatever communities involved. But I just feel that I would say imposition is no stranger to the BJP. BJP's modus operandi is imposition. You see, on one hand, we see communal rights spreading in the states like Haryana, which have never known communalism as such, but this is the BJP government there. Manipur also we are seeing, and here in Assam, what we are seeing, on one hand, we see right-wing associations, organizations conducting illegal arms training camps. On the other hand, we see the government coming out with initiatives like this, where they say that we will uproot, biogamy. If they need to do so, if they want to do so, they might as well want to share, like we've been saying for the Uniform Civil Code. Would you have some draft? Would you share with us, the blueprint of what your intentions are? But they would not, because they don't believe in transparency. They believe in hypocrisy, and they will do everything, especially given that this is the election year, they will do everything that will trigger communal violence in sensitive states like in the Northeast, and we are seeing that for the last 4 months.
Ma'am, let me just take your point over to Professor Geeta Bhatt. She's an academician who's with us right now on the show. Ma'am, essentially what we just heard the Congress say is that this is possibly being done to trigger communal reactions. And the fact is that when you take a look at the top 15 districts where polygamy is prevalent across the country, Assam isn't in that top 15 district list. Not only that, if you take a deeper look at the data, polygamy is practiced in some states, like in Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu, more by Hindus than it is by Muslims. So the question that's come in from the opposition right now, that this is being done because of communal reasons, there isn't exactly a need. Ma'am, to that, what do you have to say?
Well, Toya, well, in the 21st century, when, women are leading the space technology program of the country to moon and to Mars, there are still sections of women in this country who have to transcend various barriers, and irrespective of their caste and religion, as you are showing from your data. So I think it is important that political parties who are trying to raise this issue and trying to make it more of a Muslim appeasement issue. The point is that why is it that anyone in the Muslim community should actually feel threatened by it? Because we do not know what is there in the report, but we do understand that the submissions will be in such a way that they would strengthen or empower the women of the state with a legal perspective.
Ma'am, I just want to, one second, ma'am. I just want to come to you with a follow-up. I don't mean to interrupt you. Ma'am, as the Congress representative was pointing out, in February, we'd seen the Assam government introduce legislation, introduce moves that prevented child marriage. But we saw women come out on the streets and actually protest that because they said that their families are getting affected because their bread earners are getting arrested. So, ma'am, in practice, even though the idea behind it was noble, many criticize the practice of it. To this, ma'am, what do you have to say?
See, it is important that, and I think the Chief Minister has also mentioned that whatever are the findings, they will be tabled in the Assembly and it will be discussed. Let all the MLAs, they go through it, read it, let there be a consensus building before any change in the law is brought. But what is important is that whether it is, if you look at there is already a Child Marriage Prohibition Act 2006 in the country. But the problem here is that the legal age of marriage, when for all others is 18. But in the Muslim community, based on the Sharia Act, it says that anyone girl who reaches puberty can marry. And because of which, you see, we have to understand from this perspective that probably we need to sensitize the community, we need to educate the community that why is it important for the girls of their families to be married only after a certain age. And we do see that what are the repercussions when girls they get married early, the kind of health problems they face. There are various mental health problems which NFSH data also shows. So you see, it is very important that whether it is in terms of when we are talking about girl child or whether we are talking about woman, adult woman, it is important that we need to empower each one of them, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the caste and creed.
Okay.
Probably we need to.
Can I just ask you to stay with us for a second? I want to leave some time for other panelists.
Political parties should not actually try to take this issue. They are trying to do the appeasement over here.
Okay.
Rather than
ma'am, let me just ask you to stay with us. Let's go over to our next panelist, Saira Shah Haleems, who's also with us. She's a social activist. Saira, I'm coming over to you with this question because it has to do with the treatment of communities. A number of activists have argued that instead of introducing moves like this, because communities in Assam that will be affected by this move will be the particularly impoverished ones, instead you should introduce wide-scale education. To this, Saira, what do you have to say?
it very clear when the CM of Assam is saying that polygamy exists. Let me make it very clear that amongst the indigenous communities of Assam, especially the Muslims, it is non-existent. We have seen how, the scheduled caste, which is at 2.4%, and the scheduled caste, it is 1.6%. The percentage is much higher than the Muslims or the Hindus, because Muslims, the percentage is about 1.9 and Hindus about 1.6%. Here, I want to ask Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, what has he done with AFSPA? He had promised that it will be banned by the end of the year. Now, again, Assam as a state has been running on loans after loans after loans. So this is not good governance. Now, I want to talk again that the Assam form of governance is a double-engine governance, which has destroyed Assam's economy. Now, the CM of Assam is also the convener of NEDA, which is the Northeastern Democratic Alliance. Now, what has he done about Manipur? He even taken a single stance in Manipur. He ensured that there are measures taken to quell the tensions in Manipur. I'm sorry, he's not taken. And here, I've already listed the statistics as far as polygamy is concerned, because it is a non-existent issue. And this clearly said, this has been done, this has been doing, he's doing this to polarize the communities just before the election. And I think unfortunate, because he doesn't have any ground to stand on. Here, the state is running on loans. He's the convener of NEDA. He's not taken any solid stand on Manipur, whereas Manipur is still burning. There's no respite. And other than that, it has been clearly said that the indigenous communities, especially the Muslims, the instances of polygamy is non-existent.
Right.
So what is he talking about banning polygamy? It is non-existent. It is a non-contentious issue. And he's simply raking up these issues to communalize and polarize a forthcoming election. He should be asked, when is he doing away with AFSPA? Because he promised it in his agenda that by the end of 2023, he will do away with AFSPA.
All right, Ms. Halim, can I just 1 second, ma'am? I now need to go to the other speakers. Thank you for making your point, and thank you for raising those questions and pointing to the numbers. Let's go over now to Ashwini Dube, who's an advocate for the Supreme Court. Sir, A, would you like to respond to what ma'am had to say? And then question 2, if I could ask you to also frame this entire conversation in the larger UCC debate. But do that, sir, later. First, just respond to that.
See, first we have to see the legislative competence of a state, whether the state is having constitutional provisions to make a law where the certain practices which has been derived from the religious scriptures should be banned or not. Now I will take you to the few years back when triple talaq hearing was being done in Supreme Court. Supreme Court says triple talaq we are banning as of now, but so far as the rest of the practices like polygamy, nikah halala, nikah misyar, nikah muta, various other forms of the marriages and the divorces which are not codified. They said that we will take the religious scholars' view on this issue and we will discuss it. Now coming to the other aspect, Article 44 is the soul of our constitution. Article 44 says that the state will make rules for the betterment of the state. Principle of state policies are not enforceable by the courts, but hold a significant importance in shaping legislation and government policies. Two laws exist in this country. One, where there is a codified law which deals with these kind of marriages and divorces of Hindu, Christian, Hindu, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists. And another law, codified, not codified, arise from the religious scriptures, which is a violative of Article 14 of the Constitution, which guarantees equality before the law and equal protection of law. Article 14 prohibits discrimination on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, enables the state to make special provisions for women and children. Article 16 guarantees equality of opportunity to all citizens. 21 guarantees life and liberty. Then why there should be discrimination among the women and women? Article 25 very categorically clarifies the freedom of
expression. Sir, please summarize your point, sir. If you could very quickly summarize your point, because I do want to move on. Give us the point you're trying to make, sir, in 2 lines.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's a within the legislative competence of the state to make a law. Whosoever is crying and saying that no, starting, why are you deviating from the issue? See, our constitutional framers, when the constitution debate was going on in the Constituent Assembly, Article 44 was left over. It was given to the states to implement it and make a law at a suitable time. Now suitable time has come. If one state wants to make the laws where the uniformity
is... So, but we're not having an argument about whether or not the state can legally do this or not, sir. We're trying to understand whether or not this is actually good for the population within the reasons that the Chief Minister is stating. No one's arguing whether or not it can be done right now, sir. Let me very quickly take our audiences to some data points on the screen next to me. All right, let's take a quick look at the history of the Chief Minister. There is this argument that opposition leaders in the state have put forth that if you take a look at the history of this particular Chief Minister, there are a number of moves that he's done that have persecuted unfairly certain communities. Number one, the madrasa audit, in which the state-run madrasas were made into regular schools. Something very similar to this was actually also done in Uttar Pradesh. Now, the child marriage action, this is the one we talked about a little while earlier. This was in February when you had a statewide campaign launched in which people who had already engaged in a child marriage were either arrested, and in many cases you even had a few, less than 100, but you did have a few cases of women being arrested too. You had women turn up at police stations protesting because they argued that even though they had had a child marriage, their one bread earner had been taken away by the law. And then there is obviously the conversation we're having right now around a polygamy ban, which is the state government setting up an expert committee, as you can see over here, and the state committee going ahead and submitting its report. That's what happened earlier today. Now, what happened in the madrasa audit case? 600 madrasas were closed and madrasa teachers were held. In the child marriage action that we saw play out earlier this year, as we already told you, about 3,000 arrests took place. This was under the POCSO Act. And the polygamy ban, as we just told you, 4 members are going to be deciding on enacting the law. All right, this is the controversy as it exists, and that we wanted to illustrate for you is what the Chief Minister's record stands like. All right, I do want to go back now to each of our reporters, our guests who are with us right now to understand in more context. Let's go over right now to the advocate who we have with us, the Supreme Court advocate Ashwini Dube ji. Ashwini ji, we were coming to you to understand from you, sir, and therefore I'm going to ask you the question again. You were pointing out that the state is very much within its legal right to be introducing this, and that there's no question on whether or not the state has a legal right. Sir, I accept that. I'm not questioning whether or not the state has a legal right, sir. But I am questioning for you, sir, some of the data that's been put forth by the opposition, where the opposition is again and again saying that this is not the need of the hour. So why is this being introduced? Sir, to that, what is your response?
75 years has been passed since the constitution was made and constitution framers have given. Why we should not work within the wisdom of the constitution framers? Constitution framers left this article 44 thinking that when the right time will come, it will be implemented. Why this is not the right time when we have passed the 75 years one? Now too, when the Supreme Court time and again has said that, look, why different set of laws are existing in this country. Supreme Court has cited that the Goa is the shining example where the Uniform Civil Code is being successfully practiced for last more than 2 decades. There is no problem at all. Why we can't have a one law when the constitution says dharm nirpeksha? So dharm nirpeksha is the making an equal law is the secular activity, and now we means every citizen of this country there should be one law. Why there should be discrimination among women?
So let me quickly ask you a follow-up question here. Because you're saying that there needs to be the same law across the entire country, would you hold consistent if I then asked you when it comes to the state of Goa, for example, because Goa is often brought up, as you might know already, as an example when it comes to the question of laws around marriage. There are other states, Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, for example, where when you look at the numbers, yes, sir, as you pointed out, laws against polygamy already exist when it comes to Hinduism in specific. But still, when you look at some states like Chhattisgarh, like Tamil Nadu, even though the laws exist, the practice of polygamy continues, and it's actually higher in Hindus than it is in Muslims. So, sir, how do you look at numbers like that?
See, it's not Hindu or Muslim. it's for every community whosoever practices contrary to the noble concept of one woman and one wife. Whosoever is practicing this kind of, it's not that the law is not there that which community will be affected, which community will not be affected. It's not a communal exercise. This exercise bring one law and many outdated laws. I'm telling you, Toya, hundreds of outdated laws which are not relevant as of now and which are existing just because of this, that will go. And that is why we need one law. Okay. One uniform civil code for entire country. Why only Assam is exercising this thing? Law Commission is also taking this, and stakeholders have given their opinion.
All right. Okay, sir. Yes. Thank you for bringing us your response. I wish we had more time. I wanted to go over to the other panelists to understand their response to this, but I do believe we've actually run out of time on this conversation. Let's move very quickly. We've got some breaking news coming in and we'll actually close the show with this. We have a response from the AIMIM Chief Asaduddin Owaisi. He slammed the BJP government for its demolition drive in Nuh. So we're shifting tracks altogether to a very different story. You might remember the violence we saw play out in Nuh on Monday afternoon. This is where a religious procession of the VHP travelling through the Nuh region met with a skirmish. There was stone pelting that took place. After that, there was 5 deaths that were caused. We know that some of the violence that took place in Nuh actually unfurled out to the neighbouring regions. So, for example, the regions in Gurgaon. Now, Asaduddin Owaisi has responded to the demolition action that was carried out in parts of Nuh over the last few days. He said that this move by the BJP is a confidence-building measure. He said that they are being granted to those ideologically closer to the BJP and the RSS. Now, that's his statement. I'll go over to my colleague Nikhil. Nikhil, tell us the entirety of what it is that Asaduddin Owaisi had to say, because we haven't played it out for our audiences. And then, Nikhil, tell us about the actual bulldozing that's happened on the ground over the last few days and how it's affected different communities, please.
Well, Toya, starting with the bulldozer action in the very first place, today was the day 4 of the action, and all the officials of the district administration, they were also present at the time where the raising off of the properties was taking place, and it started with the shanties, 250 in particular in the very first place on the day 1, and after which we have seen that some of the shops were also demolished, which were outside the Nalhad Medical College. And apart from it, we have seen some of the properties where the suspected stone pelting also took place. These properties have also been demolished so extensively in every nook and corner, wherever there is identification of the properties from where the culprit belongs to or from where the stone pelting has taken place. All these properties, especially the part which is the encroachment part, it is being demolished by the district administration. So now the official reaction has come out from the AIMIM chief and the member of parliament, Mr. Owaisi, where he has raised some of the questions about the drive which is currently underway. And remember, this drive is being carried out clear-cut by the directions which have been given out by the Chief Minister of the state of Haryana, Mr. Manohar Lal Khattar. So while raising questions over the same, Owaisi has put out a tweet where he has mentioned that the confidence building means building homes and medical shops and shanties of one community. That means Muslims should be demolished without following due process to give collective punishment. And he has also said that the confidence is being given to the people who are ideologically closer to the Bharatiya Janata Party or the Sangh Parivar. Okay. But we are speaking of the same. We have been to the ground zero. We have seen the demolition taking place. Not just the Muslim side, and this has been mentioned earlier as well. That even the Hindu side as well, they have lost their shops, their properties have also been razed off. So the action is being taken irrespective of which religion the accused belongs to. So the reaction is now being coming out, and also the Nuh Congress MLA, Mr. Aftab Ahmed, he has also raised the question that this is not how the course of law is followed. If there is any of the culprit, then the action should be taken as per the court of law.
That's a criticism, right, Nikhil, that has come in from many members of the opposition. All right, that's all that we have for you here on the show. This is Plain Speak. Thank you for joining us over the last half an hour as we walked you through the day's top stories right here on CNN News 18.
Brought to you by 18 is here now and for the future. CNN News 18, Asia's biggest news TV station. India's #1 news channel moves to a new destination. A never-seen-before news ecosystem in the history of India.
An unrivaled news studio that elevates the viewer experience. Unprecedented camera views
From a spectacular newsroom.
one-of-a-kind studio pods that takes you to an unseen digiverse.
A marvelous news station that echoes
Aspirations of New India. Get ready to be stunned by Asia's biggest news television station. CNN News 18 is here to pack a power punch. CNN News 18 is here to alter your digi-perspective.
CNN News 18 is here to revolutionize newscast. CNN News 18 is here now and for the future. CNN News 18, Asia's biggest news TV station. India's #1 news channel moves to a new destination. A never-seen-before news ecosystem in the history of India.
An unrivaled news studio that elevates the viewer experience. Unprecedented camera views
From a spectacular newsroom.
one-of-a-kind studio pods that takes you to an unseen digiverse.
A marvelous news station that echoes
Aspirations of New India. Get ready to be stunned by Asia's biggest news television station. CNN News 18 is here to pack a power punch. CNN News 18 is here to alter your digi-perspective.
CNN News 18 is here to revolutionize newscast. CNN News 18 is here now and for the future. CNN News 18, Asia's biggest news TV station. India's #1 news channel moves to a new destination. A never-seen-before news ecosystem in the history of India.
An unrivaled news studio that elevates the viewer experience. Unprecedented camera views
From a spectacular newsroom.
one-of-a-kind studio pods that takes you to an unseen digiverse.
A marvelous news station that echoes
Aspirations of New India. Get ready to be stunned by Asia's biggest news television station. CNN News 18 is here to pack a power punch. CNN News 18 is here to alter your digi-perspective.
CNN News 18 is here to revolutionize newscast. CNN News 18 is here now and for the future. CNN News 18, Asia's biggest news TV station. India's #1 news channel moves to a new destination. A never-seen-before news ecosystem in the history of India.
An unrivaled news studio that elevates the viewer experience. Unprecedented camera views
From a spectacular newsroom.
one-of-a-kind studio pods that takes you to an unseen digiverse.
A marvelous news station that echoes
Aspirations of New India. Get ready to be stunned by Asia.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and somehow it is, call it a quirk of fate, destiny, or somewhere intended that every 4 or 5 months, or at least once in 6 months, I have the opportunity to sit in front of the Honorable LG of Jammu and Kashmir, Manoj Sinha ji, and he very kindly gives us the time. And this time when we are speaking with him, it is on the cusp of a landmark occasion. 4 years of the abrogation of Article 370. मनोज सिन्हा जी नमस्ते।
नमस्ते।
जय हिंद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपका समय आपने दिया। 4 साल गुजर गए, आपको लगा कि 4 साल गुजर गए, या आप जब व्हेन यू लुक बैक, पहला मैं वहीं से शुरू करता हूँ।
नहीं, मुझे 7 अगस्त को 3 साल
हो जाएंगे जी।
और जिस ऐतिहासिक घड़ी की बात कर रहे हैं वो 4 साल पूरे हो जाएंगे। 3 साल गुजर गया, मैं भी इसे देख रहा हूँ, लेकिन कैसे गुजरा इसका मूल्यांकन मुझे लगता है जम्मू कश्मीर के लोग बेहतर ढंग से करेंगे। मैं पलट के देखता हूं तो मुझे 2-3 बातें दिखाई पड़ती है, उसको मैं जरूर जिक्र करूंगा। उसका एक तो ये जो स्ट्रीट वायलेंस था वो समाप्त हो गया
जी।
बड़ी उपलब्धि में मानता हूं इसे। आम आदमी अपनी मर्जी से जी सकता है। लंबे समय बाद जम्मू कश्मीर के लोग ऐसा महसूस कर रहे हैं, अधिसंख्य लोग
जी।
बदनकाल जो कुछ टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या पाकिस्तान या कुछ इनके चट्टे बट्टे 150 दिन 200 दिन बंद के हुआ करते थे, वो समाप्त हो गया। अब स्कूल हो, कॉलेज हो, यूनिवर्सिटी हो, ट्रेड हो, बिजनेस हो, ये सब चल रहा है। और मुझे लगता है कि सूर्यास्त हो उसके पहले ही घर चला जाए। अब आइसक्रीम खाते हुए बच्चे, पोलो व्यू मार्केट में सामान खरीदते हुए नौजवान, झेलम के किनारे गिटार बजाते हुए बच्चे आपको देर रात तक दिखते हैं। ये बड़ा बदलाव है पिछले 4 सालों का। जो दूसरी बात मैं उसमें कहना चाहता हूं कि सामान्य रूप से इसके कारण सबसे ज्यादा तकलीफ गरीब आदमी को थी
जी।
जो धनाढ्य लोग हैं या मैं कहूँ रसूखदार लोग हैं, वो तो उस जमाने में भी लोगों को मैनेज करके अपना काम कर देते हैं। लेकिन परेशानी थी टैक्सी वाले को, ऑटो रिक्शा वाले को, शिकारा वाले को, हाउस बोट वाले को, खोमचा वाले को, रेहड़ी वाले को, छोटे होटल वाले को, रेस्टोरेंट वाले को। अब अनप्रेसिडेंटेड टूरिस्ट जो आया पिछले 2 सालों में
जी,
तो इनको लग रहा है कि नहीं अब रियल जम्मू कश्मीर यही है। और 5 अगस्त 2019 के बाद ये बहुत बड़ा बदलाव है। एक दूसरा पक्ष भी उसका आप देख सकते हैं। सामान्य रूप से हमारे देश में क्या माना जाता है, गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉई है, जाएगा नहीं जाएगा, बंद कॉल हो तब तो उसे अच्छा बहाना है। तो डेवलपमेंट वर्क भी सफर करता था, कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं थी। मुझे लगता है कि 4 वर्षों में ऐसा बदलाव हुआ है कि जहां 9,000 प्रोजेक्ट पूरे होते थे वहां 90,000 पूरे हो रहे हैं। रफ्तार हमारी 10 गुनी बढ़ गई।
काफ़ी चीज़ों का उल्लेख अभी बाकी है। कुछ जो मेन पॉइंट्स आपने कहे बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कहे, जैसा आपने कहा बदलाव हुआ है, लोगों को चेंज हुआ है। कुछ चीज़ हमने ये भी देखा कि 35 साल बाद लाल चौक से ताज़िया निकला, अभी हाल फिलहाल आप भी उसमें शरीक हुए थे। तो इसको आप अचीवमेंट मानेंगे या फिर इसे अपीजमेंट कहेंगे?
नहीं, ये कोशिश हम सबकी है कि जम्मू कश्मीर में जिस भी समूह या जिस भी विश्वास के लोग रहते हैं उनकी भावनाओं का, धार्मिक भावनाओं का भी आदर हो। 34 साल से ज़्यादा हो गया था। एक बड़ी आबादी सिया भाइयों यहाँ है और किन्हीं कारणों से 8वें दिन का जुलूस और 10वें दिन का जुलूस उनका प्रतिबंधित हो गया था 90 से। पिछले साल मैं असेस कर रहा था, मैंने बताया कि तीसरा साल है
जी।
तो आते ही तो मैं कोई फैसला नहीं ले सकता था। पिछले साल मैंने असेस किया, मुझे लगा कि नहीं इनकी बात वाजिब है, मैंने समझने की कोशिश की और इस बार हमने फैसला किया प्रशासन के अपने साथियों के साथ। और उन रिलीजियस लीडर से भी मैं लगातार संपर्क में था, उन्होंने भी काफ़ी सहयोग किया। पूरे जम्मू कश्मीर की आवाम ने इसमें सहयोग किया और मुझे लगता है कि इससे एक अच्छा संदेश गया है। और केवल मुहर्रम नहीं, मैंने जब ईद मनाई जा रही थी तब भी मैं हजरत बल जा करके यहाँ के इंतजामात देख रहा था। श्री अमरनाथ जी की यात्रा है तो यात्रा भी अच्छे ढंग से हो, इसके लिए बेस कैंप से लेकर के और हर प्रकार की व्यवस्था की जा रही है। और आपको बताते हुए मुझे हर्ष हो रहा है कि पिछले 10 सालों में सबसे ज़्यादा बाबा के भक्त अभी तक दर्शन कर चुके हैं। यह आंकड़ा और बढ़ने वाला है और जो फीडबैक भक्त दे रहे हैं वो काफ़ी अच्छा दे रहे हैं। 95-96% से ज़्यादा सेटिस्फैक्टरी यात्रा की सुविधाओं को लेकर के उनका फीडबैक है। तो हर तरह के आयोजनों में प्रशासन की ये जिम्मेदारी है कि चाहे वो मचैल माता यात्रा हो रही हो, चाहे बूढ़ा अमरनाथ यात्रा हो रही हो, चाहे वैष्णो देवी की यात्रा हो, किसी भी धर्म का आयोजन है, चाहे सिखों का त्योहार, उसमें भी मैं गया था। तो मैं समझता हूं कि ये हमारे देश की और खासतौर से जम्मू कश्मीर की खूबसूरती है और इस खूबसूरती को हमें बनाए रखना है। यही भाईचारा मुझे लगता है कि कहीं मिसिंग था जो अब कायम हो रहा है।
पर मैं बस ये जानना चाहूँगा, काफ़ी लैंडमार्क वो विजुअल्स थे क्योंकि किसी को नहीं लगा था कि ये होगा और कहीं ना कहीं एक धारणा थी कि मोदी जी की सरकार है, बीजेपी सेंट्रल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, ये इसको एंकरेज नहीं करेंगे। पर जब आप उनके साथ गए और मुझे पता लगा कि 6 से 8 2 घंटे का आपने टाइम दिया था लेकिन वो 6 घंटे तक खिंच गया था, 12 बजे तक आपने उनको परमिशन दी। आपको कैसा लगा? क्या वहाँ पर आपको क्या फीडबैक, कैसा लगा लोगों के बीच वहाँ उस भीड़ में जाकर के और उनके साथ?
मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। और भीड़ में लोग, एक तो वो समय ऐसा होता है कि बड़े ही गमगीन होते हैं वो
जी।
बावजूद इसके मैंने कई लोगों को पानी भी पिलाया, फ्रूट जूस भी पिलाया, तो उनके चेहरे के भाव से मैं समझ सकता हूं कि आत्मिक संतोष का भाव उस पूरी भीड़ में था। नहीं तो लाखों की भीड़ में कल्पना करिए कि पहुंचना और एकदम पूरी तरह से शांतिपूर्वक सब कुछ हो, तो ये तो देश और दुनिया को संदेश देता है कि नहीं, यहाँ चीजें पूरी तरह बदल गई हैं, काफी कुछ बदल गया है। 4 साल एब्रोगेशन के हो गए हैं, 3 साल आपके कार्यकाल के हो गए हैं। जम्मू कश्मीर के आप चुनाव के लिए तैयार हैं? मुझे लगता है कि सीधा सवाल थोड़ा मुझे
जी,
यहाँ चुनाव जरूर होंगे। गृहमंत्री जी ने देश की संसद को और संसद के माध्यम से देश और जम्मू कश्मीर को यह भरोसा दिया था और बहुत स्पष्टता के साथ कहा था, डिलिमिटेशन फर्स्ट, असेंबली इलेक्शन सेकेंड, देन स्टेटहुड एट अप्रोप्रिएट टाइम। आपको मालूम है कि स्टेट रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्ट में 7 असेंबली की सीटें बढ़ी थी। उनकी बाउंड्री क्या होगी, बिना इसके तो चुनाव नहीं हो सकता था। डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन ने बहुत शिद्दत के साथ, कई बार उनका दौरा हुआ, डिफरेंट स्टेक होल्डर से मिले वो, और उस काम को उन्होंने पूरा कर दिया। अब जो इलेक्टोरल रोल था वो पुराना था जी। बीच में पिछले 3-4 सालों में जो नौजवान मतदाता बने, बिना उनको मतदाता सूची में शामिल किए हुए तो चुनाव नहीं हो, उस काम को भी अब खत्म कर लिया है। और इलेक्शन कमीशन एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडी है, उनको कॉल लेना है कि कब चुनाव कराएंगे। जम्मू कश्मीर प्रशासन पूरी तरह से तैयार है। जब भी चुनाव आयोग कहेगा हम चुनाव जरूर करेंगे।
तो आप तैयार हैं चुनाव के लिए, चाहे वो लोकसभा 2024 से पहले भी अगर इसका डिसीजन होता है?
मैंने कहा कि ये कॉल इलेक्शन कमीशन को लेना है। जब भारत का निर्वाचन आयोग कहेगा चुनाव कराने के लिए हम तैयार हैं। और अभी यूएलबी अर्बन लोकल बॉडीज की मतदाता सूची का पुनरीक्षण का काम हमने शुरू करा दिया है और हम कोशिश करेंगे कि इनके चुनाव भी हो।
पर इसमें भी एक कंसर्न ये है एलजी साहब कि बहुत सारे जो एक्स मिलिटेंट्स हैं, सेपरेटिस्ट हैं, वो शायद अब मेन स्ट्रीम पॉलिटिक्स में जुड़ने की कोशिश करें, इलेक्टोरल प्रोसेस